The Lego brand started in Billund, Denmark in 1932 by Ole Kirk Christensen, who first produced wooden toys, but pivoted to the first iteration of the now iconic plastic bricks in 1953, then being updated to the same design sold today. These bricks would go on to be called Toy of the Century. It was 1975 when the progenitor to the minifigure was released, known as the Stage Extra. These figures were static, however the heads could be turned. Not much point considering they had no faces. It was 3 years after this, in 1978, that the modern idea of the minifigure would appear on the set number 600, as a policeman with a substantially underscaled car. The basic minifigure since then has arrived to purchases like this: one head, one torso assembly, and one leg assembly. The torso and legs coming pre-assembled due to Lego not intending these sections be disassembled, presumably for child safety reasons. However, it's also been noted that the way minifigure shoulder, wrist and hip connections are designed, removing them can lead to stress on the plastic, leading to cracking plastic and loosening of the joints. The classic design for the face is as simple as it gets, effectively using two black dotted eyes and a contented smile created many different characters with the swapping of limited hair pieces and torso colours at the first when minifigures first came out. I used to wonder why minifigures were yellow. I thought it had something to do with The Simpsons, to be honest, but it turns out the colour was chosen not to match any real skin tone, so that children could relate to the little block people. Also, have you ever wondered what that mark in the neck is for? It's for when the minifigures are getting decals printed on them, so the machine can decide what side of the torso is the front or the back, since the main piece of the torso assembly is identical on each side. The smart design on the arms is also worth noting, seen here, with how the arm looks naturally bent, yet when placed straight down doesn't stick out, keeping the torso flat. This effect was also achieved by the angled hands, which keeps the angle the minifigure holds things, like this. You'll be forgiven for thinking the basic minifigure design hasn't changed since then, since it's not the most obvious of changes. However, the minifigure design has been tweaked and modified 4 different times for each piece of the figure over the course of 45 years. An impressive amount of perfectionism. One of the biggest shake-ups to the minifigure ecosystem was actually in 1999, when Lego unveiled their first licensed minifigures for the new release Star Wars The Phantom Menace. But the designs for these figures haven't just evolved in minor ways. 2001 introduced reversible heads underneath hairpieces, giving the blocky denizens changing emotions, and in the year after, Lego released their depiction of Yoda as a minifigure, giving us the first instance of short legs, finally bringing height variation to their figures. Speaking of licensed figures, it was in 2004 when Lego ditched the iconic yellow skin tone when designing for any licensed property, seen here with these 2 Lego Harry Potter sets. This is roughly 1/40th to 1/42nd scale, compared to a real person, although this is just considering height, as these proportions of the minifigure aren't at the most anatomically accurate. However, these proportions serve to enhance the playability of these objects, as a normally proportion to the human at this scale would be really delicate and brittle. In total, the basic minifigure has 7 points of articulation: the swivel at the head, the swivel at each shoulder, and the swivel at the wrist. There is rotation at each hip as well, to let a little guy sit down. A lot of people attempted to modify the articulation of the minifigure. Usually will add knee joints to the legs, however this often impacts how the minifigure interacts with the rest of the Lego ecosystem. Also harkening back to the scale, minifigures fit perfectly into the scale of Lego, with the proportions of them facilitating those connection points, such as hands being able to grip the 3mm bar type pieces, also connecting to underside bricks and studs using a smartly raised and angled 5mm front of the hand, as well as the bottom of the torso and the legs being 2 studs wide, adding to their versatility. These qualities and integration into the wider Lego system are what makes the design of the Lego minifigure so timeless and effective. One of the biggest reasons, however, above all prior reasons that the minifigure is so timeless in its versatility seen throughout the video, have been minifigures that can represent anybody, real or fictional. From a ballerina to Iron Man. So many Iron Men. The minifigure base is such an effective silhouette to give characters any type of physical representation. The ease the design gives when users want to personify themselves within the built environments is still unmatched in the toy industry today. As a testament to this versatility, Lego actually released a series of minifigures introduced in 2010. This series of minifigure blind bags was designed to present new and interesting minifigure designs without needing bigger sets to establish the context or setting around them. This line is currently sitting at 25 waves, by the way, for the core series alone, with the 26th wave coming soon, focusing on more space related figures. That Ice Planet 1 looks really sick, can't lie. And actually this line has had quite a few spin-offs into licensed properties like Marvel or Harry Potter, with the goal of expanding the rosters on these universes without having to put out full-size sets. Throughout the minifigure's existence, there have been some really interesting, unique variants to the classic minifigure design. One of my favourite examples being Woody from the Toy Story 3 sets, with the most obvious change being a more movie-accurate head sculpt. But one of the most interesting features about this figure to me is the 3 stud long legs, giving the legs of a
big man in your corner.
Unlike when Lego made the Toy Story 4 sets. The Avatar minifigures released last year brought the legs back after a long hiatus in those sets. It was actually the Harry Potter theme again, changing up the status quo for minifigures, with the collectible minifigure series introducing the midi legs, as a lot of the community likes to call them, which are meant to be a variant with the aforementioned little legs introduced by Yoda in Star Wars. But these legs actually had articulation, unlike the prior legs, which were a single static piece. Developed to, I assume, give the main characters in the film proper minifigure articulation, without making Harry the same height as Dumbledore. Although, Dumbledore is a good example actually of how Lego actually originally used a 2x2x2 slope piece to actually have a dress, or in this particular case, a robe type piece of clothing. Although, like with the midi legs, they have also started to use a more curved, dedicated slope piece for longer garments. Going back to the late 90s when Lego was going under a bit of financial hardship, they were kind of willing to try almost anything to stay relevant in toy shelves. This in part led to official NBA sets.
But are you a different animal and the same beast?
What the f does that mean, Kobe Bryant?
You're welcome.
Using these spring-loaded minifigure legs, these guys shoot some goddamn hoops. The way Lego was able to leverage the base minifigure design to make some wacky and quite iconic aliens like this guy from Space Police especially, is really impressive with how much biological variety they were able to convey. Now, some may say they don't count, but I wanted to mention Big Figs as I feel they are at least related to the minifigure genealogy. I feel like these guys maybe aren't as well designed as the classic minifigure, for the most part, with completely static legs most of the time and having a torso, head and legs being one piece. The legs are positioned with one foot stud in front of the other, and it moves similar to the classic minifigure arms with the idea of implied movement. These figures seem to be only used in licensed themes, so Lego can have a representation that isn't completely brick built per se, saving in cost, and a reasonable scale in proportion to normal minifigures. The last type of minifigure Lego has created is, I would say, one of the most important, being differently abled minifigures. Designing the wheelchair piece for minifigures by using bike wheels, I see Lego, I like it, I respect it. As well as the collectible minifigures, including the first instance of a modern prosthetic leg. Well, Lego released Pirates with hook hands and peg legs since the 1980s. This was a serious step forward in properly representing differently abled bodies, and I really am excited to see where Lego takes this. But if all of this still hasn't convinced you, they made a big one out of wood, and it's ridiculously overpriced, and isn't that what design's all about? It even still works with the Lego system, they just don't miss. They just don't miss.
big man in your corner.